Welcome to Global Trends. Please subscribe and hit the bell icon for more breaking updates. The American auto industry, once a symbol of stability and prosperity, now faces unprecedented upheaval. For decades, these factories powered the nation's economy, providing millions of jobs and fueling the American dream. But today, that legacy is under threat as the industry grapples with a convergence of challenges unlike anything it has seen before. Aggressive trade policies and new tariffs have disrupted supply chains, leaving workers and communities anxious about the future. The uncertainty is palpable on factory floors and in small towns that depend on auto jobs for their survival. In early 2025, the White House imposed sweeping tariffs on imported vehicles and parts, aiming to protect American jobs. The administration promised these measures would spark a new era of growth for domestic manufacturers. But the global auto industry is deeply interconnected. One policy shift can unravel entire networks. Automakers rely on a complex web of suppliers and international partners, making sudden changes risky and unpredictable. The shockwaves intensified with a controversial new trade deal with Japan, dividing the industry and raising questions about the administration's strategy. Some hailed it as a bold move, while others warned of unintended consequences. Massive layoffs at major foreign-owned plants have contradicted promises of a manufacturing revival, hitting families and communities hard. For many, the dream of stable employment has vanished almost overnight. From Tennessee to Indiana, workers face economic hardship and uncertainty, feeling betrayed by policies meant to help them. The ripple effects extend beyond the factory gates, impacting local businesses, schools, and entire regions. This story will unpack the details of the tariffs, the Japan deal, and their real impact on American workers. We'll break down how these policies are reshaping the industry and what it means for the future of American manufacturing. We'll also explore the contrasting responses from the White House, U.S. automakers, and Japanese competitors. Each group faces unique challenges and is fighting to adapt in a rapidly changing landscape. By examining Canada's approach, we'll reveal who's winning, who's losing, and what's next for this iconic industry. The stakes are high, and the outcome will shape the future of American manufacturing for years to come. In July 2025, President Trump announced a new trade framework with Japan, marking what he called a turning point in U.S.-Japan economic relations. He touted the agreement as a major win for American industry, promising it would revitalize manufacturing and bring jobs back to U.S. soil. The deal set a 15% tariff on Japanese vehicle imports, lower than the previously threatened 25%, and was paired with a headline-grabbing $550 billion Japanese investment pledge aimed at boosting American infrastructure and technology. The White House claimed this would open Japan's market to U.S. cars and spark a wave of new American jobs, suggesting a new era of fairer trade and mutual prosperity. But the reality is more complicated than the headlines suggest, with many experts warning of hidden pitfalls and unintended consequences. The 15% tariff, while lower than what was threatened, still gives Japanese automakers a significant cost advantage over other trade partners who continue to face even higher tariffs, potentially shifting the balance in the global auto market. Domestic automakers and analysts quickly raised concerns about an uneven playing field, arguing that the deal could actually hurt American competitiveness in the long run. The promise of easy access to Japan's market was met with skepticism, given its long history of regulatory barriers and complex approval processes that have kept foreign cars at bay for decades. Meanwhile, U.S. manufacturers are left juggling rising costs, shifting rules, and an uncertain future, making long-term planning nearly impossible for many companies. The Japan deal, instead of resolving tensions, has added new layers of complexity and uncertainty to an already volatile global trade environment. Automakers are now caught between unpredictable policies, shifting alliances, and fierce global competition, making it harder than ever to chart a clear path forward. The supposed victory has left the industry more divided than ever, with uncertainty clouding the future of both American and Japanese automakers. As Washington celebrated the signing of a new trade deal, the mood in the nation's capital was one of triumph and optimism. Politicians hailed the agreement as a major victory for American industry, promising renewed prosperity and a brighter future for workers across the country. But hundreds of miles away, in the heart of America's manufacturing belt, factory workers faced a much different reality, one marked by anxiety, uncertainty, and a growing sense of abandonment. Massive layoffs swept through Nissan's Tennessee plant and Subaru's Indiana facility, with over 40,000 jobs reportedly lost in a matter of weeks. The news sent shockwaves through communities that had long depended on these factories for stability and opportunity. For many, decades of loyalty and hard work ended abruptly, replaced by sudden unemployment and a deep sense of betrayal. Families who had built their lives around these jobs now faced an uncertain future. "We were told these policies would protect us, but now our jobs are gone," said one worker, echoing the frustration and disbelief felt by thousands. Many workers questioned the promises made by leaders who seemed out of touch with their daily struggles. The closures didn't just affect factory employees. The impact rippled outward, devastating local suppliers, small businesses, and entire communities that relied on the steady flow of paychecks and customers. Property values plummeted, tax revenues dried up, and hope faded for many families. Once thriving neighborhoods now faced a grim reality of empty homes and shuttered storefronts. While some reports suggest not all shutdowns were total, the fear and uncertainty that gripped these towns was very real. Even those still employed worried they could be next. Even partial cutbacks left thousands without work, forcing families to make impossible choices and communities to scramble for solutions. Local leaders struggled to find ways to adapt and support those most affected. The human cost of these policies is undeniable. Families are left to navigate a future they never expected, grappling with financial insecurity and the emotional toll of lost livelihoods. The promise of a manufacturing boom has instead brought hardship and heartbreak to the heartland, leaving many to wonder if the system is truly working for them. The disconnect between policy and reality has never been more stark, as the American heartland struggles to recover from the fallout of decisions made far from home. Despite mounting layoffs, the Trump administration has doubled down on its narrative of success. President Trump has dismissed negative reports, insisting his policies are creating jobs and restoring American manufacturing. The administration highlights select investments as proof of progress, while deflecting blame for job losses onto corporations. Officials argue that short-term pain is necessary for long-term gain, pointing to the Japanese investment pledge as validation. Yet this triumphant rhetoric clashes with the lived experience of workers facing layoffs and uncertainty. The White House's victory lap feels distant to those on the factory floor. America's big three automakers, GM, Ford, and Stellantis, are sounding the alarm over the Japan deal. They argue the agreement gives Japanese companies a cost edge, while U.S. manufacturers face steep tariffs on steel, aluminum, and parts. Ford's CEO points out that domestic heavy manufacturers are penalized, while importers benefit. The Big Three also doubt the deal will truly open Japan's market, given its history of regulatory barriers. They fear the agreement hands Japanese automakers a major U.S. advantage in exchange for little real access abroad. The result: American companies feel outmaneuvered and burdened by higher costs. The policy, they say, punishes those most committed to U.S. manufacturing. North of the border, Canada's auto sector has remained remarkably stable amid U.S. turmoil. Thanks to the USMCA and a predictable policy environment, Canadian plants have avoided the mass layoffs seen in the U.S. Some Japanese automakers have even shifted investments to Canada, seeking stability. The only notable disruption: Mazda pausing U.S.-made CX-50 production for Canada, a minor issue overall. However, the new U.S.-Japan deal could challenge Canada if its exports face higher tariffs than Japan's. Canadian officials are expected to push for equal treatment in upcoming trade talks. For now, Canada stands as a rare island of calm in a stormy industry. As the dust settles, the winners and losers of this trade upheaval are clear. Japanese automakers have gained a cost advantage, while Canada's sector has emerged stronger. The biggest losers: American auto workers and the Big Three, now facing higher costs and lost jobs. Communities in the industrial heartland bear the brunt of these policies, their futures uncertain. The industry faces more turbulence ahead, with the 2026 USMCA review looming. Automakers must rethink supply chains in a world where trade stability is no longer guaranteed. The road ahead is uncertain, and for many, the journey has just begun.